Right. We are getting going. First time having a guest here on Umpire at Home. So exciting. And it's none other than the umpire who is on this game, which is Mr. David Tomlinson. You are now on the air. How's it going?
Oh, fantastic. How are we going? Good. Good.
Well, other than the audio problems, it's just been great. So we're about to watch your match between Spain and Argentina last June in the first Pro League, and this is right near the tail end of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was probably about a round or so before the finals weekend. A bit of a strange one, really. Got an email on Thursday morning asking if anybody wanted to have a weekend in Spain. I sort of thought, yeah, that sounds pretty good. So I ran it past Jackie, and then I went there to talk to my boss. Couple of phone calls Thursday night. Went to bed Thursday night. Woke up Friday morning with a couple of airline tickets. Flew out Friday morning. 17 hours up to Dubai and then across to Madrid.
Yep.
Turned up Saturday afternoon. Couple of beers. I met, caught up with a couple of people on Saturday evening. And then Sunday the game. Monday turned around, came home, went back to work. So, yeah.
That is stellar. Wow. What do I want to say? The lifestyles of the rich and umpiring. Flying around the world for one game at the drop of the hat. That's just amazing. So as you came into the game, how did you prepare for this? So what were you getting ready for to see Spain and Argentina, who tend to be fairly intense rivals at many times? What were you expecting, and what did you and Martin sort of talk about before the game happened in terms of your match plan?
Yeah, like, other than the travel aspect and the very short notice, there's a whole bunch of other things happening as well. I had two games in the Pro League right back at the beginning of February.
Yep.
One weekend and then the next week, and then that was it. I was finished. And so I really hadn't thought too much about hockey. I was doing a little bit of club stuff. I was missing a few weekends with the kids' gymnastics, etc. So really wasn't probably in full flight like you could be. So I'd never been to Spain, which was basically why I said, yeah, well, let's make this work. I've never umpired Spain before. This is the first and so far only time I've umpired Spain. So we talked about survival, basically, was the first thing. Not so much in terms of the teams, but just in terms of the situation and the whole travel thing. We talked about just keeping it simple and trying to blow easy free hits, setting our standards, etc. But at the end of the day, just trying to let the boys play some hockey. So I think we managed to do most of that for most of the time, as we'll probably see later on as we get going.
No, I mean, I think that it was it was a challenging game for all the reasons that you talked about, but it was going to be a bit of a weird one. Argentina was fighting for a place in the finals, right? It was between them and GB, and they needed every single win, whereas Spain, they were basically done at that point. They had no chance of qualifying for the finals, so they were a little bit maybe not as emotional as they usually are, but they still hate to lose. They're at home. They want to put on a good show for the fans. So I was really interested in the dynamics, the emotions that went up and down as the game went on. But we will see all that unfold as we go. Now, I think everybody should be queued up by now because we have started so late. So make sure everybody watching at home, you've got your game queued up, and we are going to start the first quarter almost right away. And unless somebody interrupts me right now and says, wait, Keely, what the hell's going on? We're going to get started. Okay. Robert's ready. That's all we need, David. That's all that's happening.
Perfect.
And you're ready to go? Good, because I need you to be queued up too. Okay, so thanks. Ryan's got the cue there. Game starts at 1:41:33 on the match clock. And we are going to get started Q1 in 3, 2, 1. I give up. And here we go. So I noticed that we talked about the camera work and all that kind of stuff. This is actually Madrid and not Valencia, right? So it's a lot more watchable than any of the matches that happened in Valencia. Those were terrible.
It was still an interesting setup. Like in terms of the video, and we'll come to that as the game goes on, but we had to pick 4 angles before the game started.
Really?
Or Kun did. Kun was in the video box. So before the game started, we had to choose 4 angles, and that's what we got.
Wow.
So you kind of crossed your fingers and hoped for the best a little bit. But.
Yeah. Good stuff. Colin, I'm drinking a Montepulciano from Italy. I don't. Tomo, what are you drinking?
I've got a Hawke's Bay Pinot, Frenchie.
There you go.
Cheeky 2015. So
Tomo's doing the right thing. So, of course, as the game's getting underway, all the action's in Martin's end. Appropriate.
Just the way I like it. Best kind of game ever, really, when it's all down the other end.
Yeah. So for all of you playing at home, remember, any questions that you have, I'll zip them up on the screen. I'll make sure David's ready to go with his answers. I've got 4 clips that we're going to pause and we're going to go to look at. And yeah, go ahead. And there we go. We have an early goal. I don't know, Tomo, if you're right on the same line that I am, but I've just seen this first Spanish goal there.
This probably made the game a little bit easy for us for most of it. That Spain just came out humming.
Yeah.
Argentina were a wee bit shaky, probably for most of the game. And Spain really got on top of them, and it was just, it made a good atmosphere. It made a really nice, clean sort of start to it, which was good for us.
Yeah. At least it starts that way.
Yeah. It's when it starts badly, you know you're in for a long day. But no, it started well.
Mr. Tenkat, good to see you. Oh, you're finally in the frame there.
Yeah, it was sort of halfway through my off season, so it's kind of, we get told, but it's not until you see yourself on TV that you realise you need to be doing some work in that off season.
And that's all of us ever. So coming up, we're going to pause. It's going to be at about 11:55 on the clock, because I want to show off something with David's positioning here that I was really impressed with out of the the box. God, Frenchie's just giving it to you. I don't know if you can read all the comments as well, but okay. So here's the portion we're going to come back to, but we'll let it run right now. It's pretty simple here. And at 11:45, give it a little pause and we're going to come back to it, because what I wanted to show was what I see is really great anticipation by Tomo, getting ahead of the play and being there as the ball broke. So as long as this works. Okay, so David can't see this, but he's going to trust me. So there's a nice transfer of the ball and penetration right down to the end line, and Tomo's already there. So I mean, David, how did you feel when you were watching this? Were you able to see that there was that big opening coming down the pitch vertically towards you?
Uh, yeah, you could. I
Yeah.
mean, it's also it's a bit of a work on for me. Something that I'm not great at, and you know you'll see that later on. That switching from, particularly when it's up my sideline, you know, it's always easy when it's coming down the far side or through the middle, but it is something I'm quite conscious of and needing to move earlier and quicker. I'm not the quickest guy out there, so but yeah, you can see that big transition and being quite aware of trying to get quite deep early. So
Awesome. Okay, we're going to get started again. So if everybody's ready to start at 11:45, and we'll go in 3, 2, 1, and go. And we just have a penalty corner to deal with. So here's a little question from Simon. How was the jet lag at this stage? Did you even have a chance to get jet lagged?
yeah, about an hour before the game, I was starting to crash.
Perfect.
I really was, which is, yeah, great timing. So it was a case of trying to get through it as much as I could, and then knowing that afterwards I can basically crash and burn. So it sparked up probably about 20 minutes before the game, you know, the warm-up and the getting mic'd up and things. But you just knew that you had an hour-long block to get through, which isn't a great mindset, but sometimes it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, well, we've all been there. I've walked off a plane after traveling for 28 hours, landing in Argentina. I've gone from minus 30 to plus 30, and I walk off the plane and they're like, hey, come do a test match. I'm like, okay. I don't think there's any better way to get acclimatized, honestly, but yeah, I know what it's like, and you're just like, okay, I just have to get through this, just get through this.
Yeah, I mean, you try and get into time zones. Well, I mean, this trip didn't bother getting into time zones, but you try and get out and about and switched on at the right time. So getting out into the sunshine, etc., rather than just going to bed as soon as you get there, kind of thing. But yeah, it was a tough experience all around.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember it just being really dry. It wasn't hot as such, but just I think 5 minutes in, I was parched, very, very dry.
Tomo, is there anything that you do special on the first penalty corner of each half to maybe set the stage with each team? Is there any little conversation you have with any of the players, or do you just handle every PC the same way?
No, the first ones, I try and make contact with the injector. I mean, we all know now to play on the whistle or the signal, but it always just helps to make that contact. And whether it's, so I've just seen Gareth's comment pop up, whether it's just to make eye contact and get that understanding, a bit of a smile. Same with the guys at the top of the D. And then it's a case of stepping back and allowing them to do their thing. I sort of try and get in there at about the 20-second mark and just quietly talk to the defensive side. At this level, when you have a 40-second clock, you can kind of just sit back and let things happen to a degree.
Yeah.
But the teams, you know, they don't want you in their face, but they quite like to just have a bit of an indication of where they're sitting. So the first one for each half, try and make contact. Bit of a wink, bit of a smile, yep, a wave, and then just let them get on with it.
Yeah. Just coming up here, we're going to see an example, I think, coming out of your circle where I really liked your whistle timing, and that's something I think you and Martin, it's right here is the Argentinians trying to sneak the ball back after turning it over. And I think that when you're setting out your stall in the beginning of the game, even though you're thinking about survival, having that quick whistle timing, I think you did a really good job setting that tempo right away, and it helped build the trust immediately. And there wasn't a lot of complaining, as this game was going until we got a little later. But you would expect that from these teams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's just the trust factor is quite big, and with those things, they want it recognised.
Yeah.
Whether it's something bigger than just a free hit or not, they just want you to have picked it and them not have to sort it out themselves.
Yeah. So, Bren, we are currently at about 7:45 on the game clock. I hope that helps. Hope everybody's tuned in and relatively synced up. So again, I'm disappointed that on this broadcast we don't have the audio feed between you and Martin, because I'd really like to hear. I'm sure you guys aren't talking that much, but the little touches, I know I've heard Martin in other games where he's got a little touch here, a little touch there, and listening to the way you guys would talk to the players would have been really nice. So feel free to fill us in if you would, if you remember any particular conversations.
Yeah, I was trying to think. We didn't say a lot to each other.
Yeah.
When I first started using radios, it was almost like a running commentary, and I think a lot of people fall into that trap.
Sure.
But now, don't say a lot at all, and even to the players, there's a little bit of you're okay, or some conversation going past, but we're not yelling at them the whole time that they're play on, or nothing there, or five, or anything like that. It's just let them get on with it.
Yeah. When you get back home and you're doing domestic games, do you find you change that tack and you go back to maybe talking to the players a bit more the way that they might be accustomed to at that level? Is that an adjustment that you make?
Yeah, locally, you have to be careful because I just tend to yell at players. They yell at me, I yell back at them. No,
standard.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. There's probably a little bit more familiarity, so that a bit of banter and a bit of chat as you go past. But I'm too busy trying to run and breathe at the same time to worry about talking to them.
Yeah, I find the lower the level of the match that I'm doing, I tend to talk to the players a little bit more because they need a bit more guidance as to what I'm thinking. Whereas I think you go a little bit higher and they expect you to be making certain calls certain ways and playing that advantage or not calling that foul that isn't a foul and that sort of thing. But yeah, the banter's there.
Everything you do is dependent on the level. And sometimes, they need that extra help. Particularly when you're thinking something and the level of play is not quite matching up, you need to adjust a little bit there and help them adjust too.
Yeah. Okay, so I've tried to get this question up a couple times, but this is Mike D. He's asking you, how far are you going up the pitch, or do you keep level with the first forward? And I assume that's the first forward who is attacking your controlling circle. Does it depend on the situation where the ball is and where all the players are arranged around it?
Yeah, it does. Tend to sort of start a little bit deeper, and that's mainly because not wanting to get caught out. Sometimes, it all depends on what's happening in the game and how the midfield's playing. If the midfield's pretty open, then I tend to hang back in my own sort of area a bit more. If it's getting congested down that far in, then I'll get basically all the way down there. We used to sort of, I guess, coach going down about halfway between the 25 and the halfway line, sort of kind of about there. But I think now it's just whatever you're comfortable with, as long as you can get back and cover your own end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's all about the possibility of that counterattack, right? And whether you see a potential opening where the ball can outlet, and you've got to be worried about that. We might be looking at a clip where
Yeah.
that happens later. But I do so with love, only with love.
Yeah, well, there might be some internet issues about that time.
We're getting more questions about what red wine we're drinking than we're getting about the game, which means everybody's priorities are in perfect order.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a
Yep.
Hawke's Bay Pinot Noir from a little vineyard called Tahuna. So I'm a Hawke's Bay boy growing up, so I'm a little bit biased towards my Hawke's Bay Reds. But yeah.
Gotcha. You're going to have to go through the comments afterwards, Tomo, because it's just nonstop bants. Nonstop. Is the countdown clock behind Martin at that point? Is he looking over his shoulder to see where the...
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's something I didn't pick up on at the time, but it's actually not a bad little management tool as well. You know, there's this big clock counting down, and just everybody's looking at it. And I mean, I can sit there at halfway and give Martin a countdown and tell him there's 5 seconds to go, etc. But if the players sort of see him just quietly checking over his shoulder, then there's no surprises if time ticks by and they're not ready. But he's also doing it quite quietly. It's just having a look. He's not interfering with their setup. He's got his eye on the time. They've got their eye on the time, and then we carry on. We can sort of do the same thing in club hockey where we don't have the countdown. Mm-hmm. We can just make those little gestures that just say, "Hey, look, let's keep things moving here."
Yep, absolutely. There's a question from Simon here, David. Given the jet lag, was it better or worse that most of the game was at Martin's end? You can tell Simon's done his homework. He's already watched the whole game.
I was quite happy most of it was at Martin's end. There's times where you want to be in the thick of the action, and there's times where you're quite happy just to walk away with a 5-0 result and not have to do anything.
Yeah.
So if the game's at Martin's end, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I love it. Anything on your notes there that we've missed in Q1 so far? People at home, Tomo showed me like his sheet where he took his own notes in addition to my notes. We are the most prepared people. Like, look at that. An exceptional amount of work, and we're just going to talk about wine the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for everybody at home, we're at our last minute here of Q1. It's been relatively quiet. Just the one early goal from Spain, no cards. Oh, somebody pumping your tires. Love your work, Tomo. There's a little moment coming up here with about 15 seconds left where I thought there was a bit of a flail of the stick, but I didn't see it now, so it's all good. Clearly it didn't happen. Okay, I've got the end of the quarter. So, Tomo, you and I are going to pause our broadcast when we get ready to start Q2, and I'll let everybody queue up. But here's James McKenzie. Where do you advance up the pitch? Where you advance up the pitch, sorry, let me pull that back, change depending on if you have radio comms or not? Is it useful to be in a more consistent spot so your co-umpire knows where to look at a glance if you don't have radios? Thoughts?
Oh, to be fair, I don't do a lot of umpiring with radios. So we've got them at a national level here in New Zealand. Some associations have them. So my umpiring doesn't really change depending on radios or not. I think it's still quite important that you're not just umpiring for the players on the field or for your co-umpire, but for everybody else as well. And the coaches and the spectators can't hear what you're saying over the radio, so they still want you to be in a position where you can see, and in terms of signalling and waving at your co-umpire, etc. That body language and visual communication is still really important. No, my positioning is based on whether I can see the ball or see the play, and as I said, whether I can try and get back or not.
Yeah.
So it doesn't change a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that when I'm using radios, it's still so important to be able to have that visual track where you can see your colleague and you can pick up, just even in your periphery, a change in their body language and things like that. And it just helps that communication that you might be able to have over the radio be more understandable, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't change too much either. Oh dear. Now everybody's on board. Okay, so if everybody is getting queued up at home, I've got 122.15 on the left-hand side, 28.31 on the slider, and hopefully everybody's queued up. And Ryan is also agreeing with that. I got a couple good questions to start this off, so I'm just going to make sure everybody is queued. Here's a question from Mark. How do you prepare for these kind of games? Do you watch the two teams beforehand, take notes, or anything similar? And while Tom was thinking of his answer, we're going to start the game. Okay, so if everybody's ready, we're going to start Q2 in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so Mark's question, how do you prepare? Do you take lots of notes?
I've umpired Argentina a number of times. And so you know what they're going to do on the field. You know the sort of players that are out there, and that they really don't like things going against them. Spain was the first time I'd come across Spain. I'd seen them at the World Cup, but that was the first time I'd seen them play. I mean, I've heard plenty of horror stories about them, but the preparation was really just, we know that there's two teams that want to play and don't want to lose, and they want things going their way. They really get frustrated when they don't get the rub of the green or the whistle doesn't go how they think it should, so we just have to be prepared for that. I do a little bit, I suppose, but not a lot in terms of sitting down and analysing teams and how they play. It's most teams at this level kind of play the same in terms of the structure, but you just know that some are faster on the counter attack, a bit more flair with individuals, etc. So it's something I'll take forward, having now experienced Spain, Argentina, and moving forward to the next time I come across either of these two teams. But
right.
It's just a case of going out and umpiring these fellas.
Here's a little question from Ryan. What are the pros and cons of having the radios for you? I think we all know what the pros are. So why don't you talk about the cons specifically?
I guess the cons are that you just rely on radios and you sometimes forget to umpire. I've come across so many people that now say, I can't umpire without radios. You still have to get in the right position. You still have to see things. You still have to do the job for your co-umpire. And as I said, you still need to signal and show the game what's going on.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest con. And when sometimes we talk too much and we get distracted with giving a running commentary or a bit of banter or whatever's going, that we sort of forget exactly what it is that we're meant to be doing. But if we sort of walk away from it and say, oh, look, if I haven't got a radio, I can't umpire this. It's you're sort of forgetting where your skill set actually lies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And saying that, I mean, they're obviously a great advantage, but it's not the be-all and end-all.
Mark says, thank you for the answer. Very polite. I've got 11:30 gone in Q2. I am missing all of the moments that I took notes on, but it's better. You're
No, they
getting
just
good
say
questions from people.
run faster, run faster, run faster. So,
I would never say
a
that.
bit of a
I am
mantra
also a
for
slow umpire. I would say anticipate earlier. That's all.
well, yeah.
Nice
Quicker,
comment from
quicker,
Nirmal here.
earlier.
Great to see a top umpire emphasizing the importance of basic skills. Absolutely.
Oh, look, I mean, you can be the greatest manager of a game and have all your flash tricks, but if you can't get the decision right, then you kind of...
Yeah. Would you agree that the best management skill is being accurate?
Oh, absolutely. If you get it right, then you don't have any problems, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. There was just a green card there that Martin's shown. Spain continued to play on after the free hit was awarded, actually in favor of Argentina. They didn't bother to look at Martin's arm, and they just kept going. And in Martin's view, that is delay the game. And
Yeah, it was a bit of a messy situation, but we expected the teams to be better.
yeah,
and basically not take it into their own hands. So I mean, it was no fuss with the green card from Martin. It was just, look, you weren't five, you interfered. It's a green card. Yeah.
and I think that's one of those things that you can do at this level is that you're expecting the players to understand what call is going to come out, and they do know. They really do. Honest confusion doesn't happen that often, so if they keep taking the mick, you're just going to deal with it. Here's a little comment from Mr. Greenfield. Do you think we use the radios too much? I wonder sometimes we make it hard on the other umpire if we're in his ear all the time when they're concentrating on the ball in their own circle. Hashtag less is more.
Yeah, it certainly is a timing thing. And as I said, I think the big mistake we make right at the start of using radios is that running commentary, that talk. But less is more. When you pop up when you're needed and you're aware of what the other person's thinking and trying to focus on. Otherwise, it blurs into the background like anything.
Yep, yeah. Absolutely. Yep. Mike D asking, were you advised before the game on to allow certain aspects or not? So maybe you can just sort of address generally how the umpire managing aspect came into this whole tournament, or wasn't there whatsoever? Go ahead.
Yeah. Last year was quite an interesting experience. Leading into Pro League, we really didn't get a lot of not guidance. We didn't get a lot of direction about what we were going to blow or how to do it. I think we were just expected to do a good job. and the people that were picked for this panel, that's what we do. We sort of know what's expected of us. We know what the game expects. The briefing's not much different from every tournament we go to. So, look, there wasn't anything specific that we were asked to do. I think we had umpires managers assigned to each game. I don't know who mine was from this game. I still haven't heard from them, so feel free to give me a debrief after this. Whereas this year we had sort of Skype calls and chats. We had a formal emphasised a few points, etc. But last year it was just basically, hey, look, go out and make it a good product. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was. We did set up a Facebook group sort of about halfway through the Pro League. So once the New Zealand and Australia games kind of got out of the way and it shifted to Europe, they got a wee bit panicky and set up their own little group and said, right, what are we going to do? They'd seen how we'd done things and kinds of issues that had popped up. It's also quite tough because each of these games, while it's a league and a tournament, almost a little bit one-offish. Whereas when you go to a tournament, you're setting standards and one game flows onto the next. You're seeing what's done in the morning game, and then you go and carry on in the next game, or you tidy up what wasn't done, or etc. Whereas kind of here, we sort of flew in, flew out a little bit, which is something that we need to be aware of. And really be quite conscious of that we are still umpiring for each other and we're umpiring for the next game, not just what's in front of us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That'd be a big challenge for a lot of us. It's not a setting that most of us have ever been in, so.
And we hadn't either, and we were figuring it out as we go along, which was the cool thing about it. It's a great product, and there's obviously things that are going to change about the way hockey's done around the world, but I think the concept of taking games to home venues and playing superb. So we have to be quite switched on and figure out how to go about doing that.
Yeah. Just so everybody's on the ball, at about 4 minutes on the clock, we're going to stop for another clip. Tom will show some flash management skills here, so gotta get that on there. And there's a goal. We can address this quickly because we got a little pause for the goal here. Elsaby, why do we not see players not completely off the pitch when they sub? From an umpiring perspective, it's big white box, right? You guys don't care. That's for the technical team to deal with, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's something that everybody accepts. Players are coming off and players are going on. And as long as the play is not right there, then nobody really cares,
Yeah, taking some advantage. It's a big pitch.
Yeah.
It'd be quite the situation for somebody to gain an advantage by being 2 steps, into the pitch.
And we're just trying to get the feet right, let alone who's on and off the pitch.
Absolutely. Oh, I guess we have it 4:02 and I'm still only at 5 minutes. Okay. Simon likes your GB bag that's on the shelf there.
Got a garage full of the stuff.
I sure you do. Citizen of the world. And I find it's interesting. We're starting to get some momentum coming into your circle now. Argentina's starting to figure out that they're in a game and taking some opportunities.
Yeah,
in about 20
they
seconds,
took
we're
a
going
while
to,
to warm up, but they're coming.
yeah. We're going to see a little fun from one of our highlight players. Xavi Leonard's going to address something with you. I'm sure it's coming. I'm just going to sip my wine. Okay, here it comes. So we're at 4 minutes and the ball's going to go off the sideline. And then there's going to be an overhead that goes quite shallowly. And then you give a little stop to the time. So we're going to come back to the clip, but we'll watch it in real time. And you're going to have a little word, which I really like. And so before time starts again, let's give it a stop. And we'll go back to that clip. And maybe, Tomo, you can lead us through exactly what you were seeing there.
Left-hand side.
Clip. Let me boot it up.
Umpire trying to crush the ball in. A little deflection ball up.
Okay, so at this point here, this is where Leonard tries to take the little scoop, and you do call it as dangerous on the way up. What was the little conversation you had with Leonard there?
Little word there.
Yeah, well, he said something quite naughty.
Kiwi just having a little word.
Really?
With the Spanish number 17.
Yeah, and I don't speak a lot of Spanish, but I'm pretty sure I understood what he said there. And so I'd stopped time and my cards were out of the pocket before I really processed sort of what was going on. And I kind of recognised that I was quite deep and a little bit inside the play, and 3 or 4 Argentinian guys had appealed at the same time. And it looked to me to be too close with the overhead. So it was just a free hit. So partway between me walking and getting towards them and my cards are out and everything else, I sort of changed my mind about what I'm doing here because I don't really know what I was going to do. So I was kind of just saying to him, hey, look, you're too close. Yeah, I appreciate it's an overhead down the line, but he's still well within space, and let's not make more out of this than we need to. And then kind of moved past him, so it was, let's leave it there. Hope for the best. But it was a chance. I mean, it was a chance to, well, because time had stopped, I'd blown time off before I realised what was happening. Just everybody take a breath. Argentina weren't that fussed about attacking that quickly. I mean, you know when they want to take the free hit. The Spanish guys can just sort of process the fact that they're now on defence and take a breath and set up again. So, yeah. But I kind of moved past them before I had a chance to say anything back. I was just like, look, let's not go any further where we don't want to go.
And that's a good strategy, right? Because you want to try to avoid that long conversation where you say your bit and they're like, yeah, but. And there's no yeah buts. You give them a chance to give you one word, you come back with your statement, and then it's like, okay, now we're moving on. Let's go. So, no, I liked it.
It was pretty good. He made a good point that it went kind of straight up. And so at that point, he wasn't too bad, He was just frustrated. We moved on.
That's fair. Okay, we're going to get restarted here. I've got 3:49 on the clock, and Tomo is just whistling time in. So we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and off we go. And Leonard's quite a key player on the team in terms of emotional temper, right? He's sort of a guy that you'd be, okay, if I can keep him maybe not doing too much appealing, too much dissenting, then you've got a shot at keeping the whole team maybe a little bit more under wraps. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, it is. As I said, it was my first Spanish game, so I hadn't had any personal experience with any of these guys, but you've seen enough of them playing that you know who the key boys on the field are. And every team's the same. Every team's got 2 or 3 people that, if you can just keep things going smoothly with them, then the energy will flow from it. So,
yeah, absolutely. Alicia just chiming in there saying sometimes it's more how it's said than what the words are. Absolutely right. You tend to know. I don't know if you can see this from Martin. Have you told them about the big hole in the pitch you nearly fell down?
I try to repress that memory. There seems to be a big hole on every pitch I come across.
Oh, dear. It's just, nonstop. Next time I get a special guest, I'm going to have to make sure none of their friends are allowed on the broadcast because it's just... All right, so you got your first video referral of the game here. We've got 2:10 on the clock-ish, once they stop it. So they're going to look for a push, and, Kuhn's going to say something, I don't know, irrelevant. But how does it, the very first time you had a video referral, how did it feel when you were out there?
The first time?
Yeah, the very first time. Do you remember?
Yeah. It was Junior World Cup. So there's a whole lot of it was the first time I'd used radios. The first time we had video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it was a strange thing for a start. You kind of, you're just waiting for somebody to refer. You kind of know it's going to happen, and it's a little bit of, is it going to happen now, etc. So you can either take in, I guess, the approach that I'm right, they're wrong, and anybody that challenges me is, causing issues, or you can just say, look, I get things wrong on the pitch, and let's get it right. Certainly, watching myself go through the video process is quite a big part of it as well. How you come across, and that whether you maintain that calmness or whether you get quite aggressive about this is what I've seen, and look, we're going to stay with this call kind of thing. But my base philosophy at the moment is, look, I get stuff wrong all the time. So if you want to send it upstairs, let's flick it up there and hopefully get the right outcome.
Yep. All right. So coming up, I've got about 1:30 on the clock, and at 1:10 we've got a bit of a fun sequence coming up that you pointed out to me before I'd even watched the entire game. And I think it comes off the penalty corner here, so we'll have a little look for that. I got to say that ever since I saw the video referral come through, I've always been really impressed with how, even with less experienced umpires, how well they're able to comport themselves and show the right reaction on camera. That they don't go, if they get a recommendation that reverses their decision or something like that. Everybody's really good at just sort of composing that. And maybe that comes from just understanding that sometimes you do get it wrong, and it's way better to get it right. So, all right, so we got the corner coming up here. And go ahead and tell us what you're seeing on your end, Tomo. Shot. Cortez save. Another shot. Appeal. Another shot. Cortez save.
Yep. It was full noise.
And another
save.
The
ball fly around left, right, and centre. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And now you're getting even though you've given the free hit to Spain, you've got the players coming to you. You've got Cortez coming to you. Tell me about this conversation here.
Yes, it was a weird conversation. I honestly had no idea what they were talking about. One of them was talking about his mask. I watched the clip a few times. I don't know. Cortez comes across to sort of say, "Hey, look, we're okay here." I mean, the reality was, if the ball had gone in the goal, I was probably going to send it upstairs myself because so much had gone on in the circle. It was everywhere, But I mean, he came straight at me and he's pointing to his mask and a whole lot of things. I'd sort of seen that he was on the ground, but other than that, I was kind of, what are you talking about? And it took me a long time to try and say, well, hold on, what are you doing? Do you want to refer a free hit out or?
Yeah, exactly. You got your result.
Yeah. I haven't. I mean, nobody's hit you, as far as I can tell. Is that what you're trying to say? And at the end of it, I think they kind of just shrugged their shoulders and moved on. But it was a very strange reaction for me, and it took a long time to figure out if or what I should be doing about it.
I hear you. I was just curious if anything clear came, but if it didn't, there you go. Sometimes I think they're just trying to like take the mickey and just try to confuse you as much as possible, So Brent has a question here. Argentina and Spain are quite vocal teams, often throwing hands, appealing, even if it's an obvious thing. Does it affect your mindset during the game, or are you used to it at this point?
Yeah, you're kind of used to it. I mean, sometimes it acts just to say, yep, what I thought I've seen, they've seen as well. I mean, you can let it get frustrating, I suppose, if you want to go down that track and tell them to stick their hands down and make a big issue out of it. Otherwise, kind of just ignore it.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it does go over the top and it's repetitive and continuous. And when that's added all together, you just want to stop and say, hey, stop, enough.
Yeah.
But with a lot of these guys, you just, you can try and just roll with it because it's their game. But
yeah. I figure you just try to call yourself out of it with quick whistles, get the game going as fast as possible so they don't even have the chance to give you grief. Absolutely.
Yeah, all right. The quick free hits are really important there. Just not even worry about advantage. Just get in there and blow it and say, okay, fine, we'll bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we have ended quarter two, and we're going to pause here, let everybody catch up, make sure everybody's on par for the second half. And Jono, my personal queuing officer, is here to tell us it's 1:02:15. Thanks, Jono. Can always count on you there. And while everybody's queuing up, maybe we can have a look at, Mark's got another question here about dealing with the pressure from the prestige of the match. From the spectators, the players, before and during the game. Is there anything that, or is it just experience that gets you through? I'm not trying to lead you into an answer. Sorry. Let's leave it open-ended. What do you do? How do you deal with it, Tomo?
You expect it. And I think that's the first thing that I mean, you can only control what's going on the field, but you understand that the spectators are going to be vocal and it's the home crowd. You expect that the teams are not wanting to lose, that they're going to come out, that they're going to be fiery, whatever, and just. But in terms of special preparation, it's not that it's just any other game, but it's still a game of hockey. And you're trying to do the best job you can do anyway. So it might mean that, you really do focus and try and make yourself that little bit sharper for a start. But yeah, I suppose it is experience and being there and your local games or your club final or anything like that has a little bit more riding on it. you take all that experience and bring it with you.
Yeah, I hear you. I remember the first time that I did a match with any fans whatsoever, Junior World Cup in Chile, and they had free admission, and everybody was just swarming around. There were just stacks of Chileans around the pitch, and for me, it was just incredible. And I just looked around, like, holy shit, what is happening? And they had streamers and balloons and drums and chants, and everybody swearing at me in Spanish, and it was just the most fun I've ever had on a pitch. It was just great. Okay, so just before we get queued up, there's a section you didn't see on what I provided to you here, Tomo, but just before the half starts, you can see Martin's having a little giggle with one of the Spanish players that's close to him, I think about the watering or maybe something else. I don't know if you overheard anything, or maybe they were having a private joke, but.
I think there was a bit of banter about the amount of water that went on. I don't know what Martin said to him, but we shrugged our shoulders and said, "Hey, mate, it's your country.
Yeah.
you guys are running the show here."
All right, we're going to start the third quarter. Hopefully everybody's ready to go, and we're going to get started in 3, 2, 1. Make it so. Oh, this is a great little question from Ryan Griffiths here. Do you have any advice for young people who want to umpire internationally?
Just
buy lots of wine for your favorite umpire managers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Get on their good books. Just keep trying to be better. Not everybody's going to umpire the finals or get the big games at tournament, etc. So you just make the most of every game that comes your way. It's a case of trying to learn from everything we do and just, one thing I really have learned over the years is that you have to be focused on the process and not the outcome. If you can work on your fitness, you can work on watching games and umpiring, but as soon as you start worrying about what's going to come from it, then you stop doing the job that's in front of you. So for young guys wanting to umpire internationally, you got to have a passion for the game and just keep working hard, keep turning up each week, keep trying to be better, keep talking to people, keep talking to players and coaches and spectators and listening. Not everything that comes your way in terms of that advice is going to make sense or is going to sit with you, but at the same time, it's all about the game of hockey rather than just knowing the rules.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's definitely a mistake I made in my career. I was really focused on where I wanted to go. I had goals, and we do live in a culture where goal setting is such a big thing, but it can get us into that trap where we think about setting a goal based on the outcome rather than a goal based on our own performance and the things that we can control. So that's a really good point. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many times we go to tournaments and we worry about what game we get at the end of the week or what mark we get if it's a marks-based thing. Whereas, the big game of the tournament might be on day 1 or 2. Or as long as the recommendation says keep going or come back next week, then that's fine. As I said, there's only 2 guys that can do a final at the end of the week, and that's not necessarily the big game either. but yeah, as soon as we focus on the outcome, we stop doing the job that we're meant to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are we up to on the stream here?
I'm
Julie?
at 11:20
So we've just
here in
we've
Q3.
just gone past that little breakdown in the play, then, have we?
Yeah, so there was that little tackle on Gonzalez, I think. And there was a bit of an outcry. They were looking for something a little bit more from me there, but
yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a conscious decision to downplay that one.
okay.
To me, the Spanish guy was carrying it across his body as the Argentinian sort of reached in to make the tackle, and so therefore it wasn't deliberate. I think if you're watching the stream there, then you kind of saw the game stopped and everybody sat around for a little bit, and that's probably an indication that maybe something more needed to have been done. The game wanted something more. The Spanish wanted a 10-minute yellow for that tackle at the end of the game. And I think if we're a green card, at least would have just been an easy decision rather than choosing to downplay it. So, bit of a turning point in terms of what happens after that. It's given what we've done in the first half, I think that was an easy green card there.
Yep. Okay,
So,
that's totally fair.
yeah.
So, Mike D, yes, he did think of it after the fact.
Yeah, well after, yeah.
Oh, and we just missed a goal. I don't know if you're in the same spot there, David, but we got Tolini's.
Argentina wanted a penalty stroke for this, for the tackle leading into the circle. And you see the frustration coming through a little bit.
To be fair, though, I mean, Argentina had a ton of chances up until now, and they just hadn't capitalized. And, I think Spain is looking for maybe more of a flattering result than what they were really deserving that point. But so we have a really long question, James admits, from this. I've never umpired anyone whose language I don't speak. Do you modify what you say if only one team speaks a language that you know to keep things fair? Or do you maximize even if it doesn't mean that you speak evenly to both teams?
It's something that I guess I've been more conscious about the further on I've gone, that you're not just speaking to the English-speaking teams. I think when I first started, it's easy to talk to teams that speak English, and we can, as Kiwis and Australians, etc., and most of us, we like to talk and manage games in that regard. So, and probably a lot of people are the same, but trying to keep language simple. I've been told on many a report that my English is absolutely atrocious. Trying to keep things simple and clear and short. When you've got one team that speaks English and one that doesn't, you do have to be conscious of how you interact with that side. No different to a team that's got players that you know really well and players that you don't. So you do have to be aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember going through that same process as well. And one thing I tried to do was I would try to pick up a few words in the language of the teams that I was about to umpire. And I remember I was doing Spain versus France in Antwerp at an Olympic qualifier. And I know a little bit of French, and I'd picked up a little bit of Spanish. And so I was speaking to each team just a couple words in each of their languages. And I'm pretty sure they were impressed at one point because I was doing the trilingual thing, but you can get yourself really caught up in a knot trying to do too much of that because you kind of got to focus on what you're deciding rather than on what you're saying. So yeah, that's a really good point, but it can be a nice little touch of rapport, even if you learn how to say 5 meters or stop or, play in another language. It could just be a nice little, like, I'm trying to speak to you in a way that's easy for you to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, where are we at? Yeah, you don't have a lot going on in this quarter so far.
I was enjoying the ride a little bit here. I was
Yeah.
yeah.
So here's Nora. She's asking, is there anything other than experience that makes it easier to deal with tough games with lots of complaints or appealing? Any tips or tricks? Deep breathing exercises?
Yeah, no, yeah. You just got to battle through those. Confidence in what you're doing and have done in the past sometimes helps.
Yep.
It's a tough one when it's all going against you in the game, isn't it? I think the fact that we chalk those ones up to experience and we come back again next week. And the more of those we do, the easier it gets just to roll through it. But yeah, we sort of try and tell ourselves that we're doing a good job and that we're a good umpire, and and it's tough when we've been pushed up a level or we're doing something that we haven't done before, but we're doing it for a reason.
Yep.
And we remind ourselves why we're out there in the first place. It's we obviously love the sport. Otherwise, yeah, we're not doing it for the money, that's for sure.
All right, a little comment from Simon here, noticing a little increase in the amount of dissent. Was there anything that you were going to try to do about that at that point, or were you just going to just plug away? Because, I mean, the game is going to get more contentious. Argentina wants a result. Spain is playing for pride.
Yeah, sort of just trying to keep it a little bit sharper.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it probably falls down a little bit in the key moments. But in that fourth quarter, that probably that little bit of sharpness was sort of dropping away. Probably not quite as much advantage as we would have liked. But at the same time, I mean, they're two very skillful sides and skillful individuals that, we were damned if we do, damned if we don't with these guys. If you blew it early, then they broke through and they were wanting the free run, and if we didn't blow it, and they were complaining about that too. So, yeah.
Just plug away.
Yeah.
And if you're at the same point I am at Tomo, we've just had the other, we've had the second Argentinian goal. We
Yep.
now have a tie game. And things are going to get a bit more fun. This is a bit of a defensive error, and they're really unhappy about this on the Spanish end.
Yeah, the wheels just starting to come off a little bit. There's a couple of their decisions at the back. Yeah. You can see they're trying to rush forward a little bit more, throw it a bit quicker.
Yeah, the one thing that I sort of noticed around this time of the game, I was noticing that some of the free hits, there were a little bit more motion on the ball on a more regular basis, which to me indicates, pressing of the tempo and that sort of thing. And they're pushing the envelope. And they're going to see what they're going to be able to get away with a little bit more as the game's going on and that sort of thing. But it ends up not being an issue as the game goes. But this is where I noticed it started really happening.
Yeah. I mean, and certainly looking back at this game, it's quite noticeable, which is probably not a great thing when you're, not dealing with that at the time. But yeah, the rolling ball, we were quite content just to let them get on with it. But there was just that little bit of breakdown, little bit of carrying on. Tempers were sort of, just with, but then they'd go back into their shell a little bit as well. So it was kind of,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so everybody's getting prepared. We're going to have another clip coming up at around 2:40 left on Q3. Unfortunately, it's a Martin's End, but that means that we can make fun of him. So it's a win-win situation. Argentina's really putting the screws on. And everybody's cheering, it's a goal! And the commentator's completely out to lunch as to what happens here. I try not to pick on them too much, but it's hard. So I'm at 2:48 with Q3. We've just watched the replay, and I'm going to go to the clip because I was able to actually grab the replay that happens like another minute onto the broadcast that shows quite clearly why this goal was called back by Martin, and there was zero complaints at all.
Trying to crush the ball
so let me get back onto this.
Again under pressure.
So we've got the shot coming in, but there's a guy right on top of Cortez. And now Cortez is a pretty aggressive goalkeeper, but as you're watching this, you're going to see that Cortez takes a couple of steps a little bit forward, but the Argentine defender is really backing into him, and there's a lot of body contact that knocks Cortez a bit off balance, and you see it from the goal angle here. Here comes the defender backing into him without any regard as to where Cortez was. And when you see the side angle, you can see what a great angle that Martin has on it. So an easy decision. He made the call very, very quickly, and I think that's why it was so accepted, even at such a crucial moment in the game. Any more praise you want to heap on your colleague there?
Look, he did. He blew it straight away. And the fact that you've got an attacker lying on top of a goalkeeper, we'd had a couple of situations where the players just looked at us and then turned around and ran back, and that was, he was right there. He was in a great line. He had clear view. He blew it early, and there was just no complaints. But again, I think there was a bit of trust there as well. I mean, you see Cortez's reaction. He kind of knew that the free hit was coming, and if it wasn't, it was just going to be a nice, quiet referral and etc. But the fact that Martin's right there and straight and nice signal, piece of cake.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to get started. I've got 2:48 on the clock, and we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, go. The commentator is still talking about how he doesn't know what the call was. They honestly need an umpire whisperer on these broadcasts. And I'll sit there and I'll be like, hi, I know, ask me.
Like a lot of these commentators are really good at asking, after the fact. But when they are the voice of what's going on, that's the
thing, right? I hold them to a high standard because, and again, we're kind of spoiled when we've got people like Nick and Simon and Charlie Broom and people like that. They really know what they're talking about, and they're real students of the game. But yeah, it's a tough job, and especially when they're on their own like that, and they're calling the play-by-play, and they're trying to provide color at the same time. So I have a lot of sympathy at the same time. I just think it takes away a lot from the product when the fans aren't getting maybe that sharpest explanation and learning, oh, that was a goalkeeper obstruction. Okay. So we're getting closer to about 1 minute left in Q3. Great advantage on that aerial. I really like that.
I reckon he missed it.
Either way, it still works.
That's a Gareth Greenfield call, that. You miss a few feet and they call it a fantastic advantage.
I do hope he's still watching.
Me too.
So we're just winding down, and Martin's going to have actually, I think he's got a couple penalty corners coming up in the last few seconds here. Jono, you're ahead of time. Pipe down over there in the comment section. So we've got a corner that Martin's called with, well, they wind the clock back to 10 seconds here. And what he does is he makes sure he talks to both the teams. And am I right in assuming here, Tomo, that he's telling the teams, okay, if the horn happens to go during this, you just keep going until I blow the whistle. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. You'd be surprised how many players, or maybe you're not surprised, how many players don't understand that concept. A lot of them feel that the hooter should just be held and not go at all. But, time's up, so time's up and the hooter goes. So it's a nice way of just basically, it's bringing the attention to the players, but it's also just reinforcing to yourself that, hey, the hooter's going to go here and I have to keep concentrating and not just blow for the end of the game. I've got to let this play out. So a little bit of, getting the players on side and getting them tuned into it, but also tuning yourself in as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great point. Sometimes you're talking to the players or even talking to your colleague just to get yourself in the right mental space. I just have to share that. Oh, Gareth. So that corner is going to play out, and it's gone 5 meters outside. Yes, and that was in the new 2019 rules, so all did well. All right, so everybody queue up to Q4. And I'll let that go a little bit. Jono, always being helpful. 1:23:06. I'm pretty sure he writes down the numbers before the game starts. Same way I do. Okay, so any other questions from the audience while we're waiting everybody to get themselves queued up for Q4? No more banter, Gareth. You're cut off. I'm done with you. You're disrupting things. So good. All right, everybody's just in awe, so that's the best. All right, hopefully everybody is queued up because we're going to get started. Q4 in 3, 2, 1, starting. Excellent comment from Alfred Chan. Gareth's game for our next one.
No, I totally agree.
Thanks, Nora. Good night. So I thought there was a little bit of knock away of the ball going away from Martin there up the sideline, a little foot, and then he encouraged the ball in front of him and off the sideline. And so there's a couple little ones here that I thought had you picked those in the first quarter, the second quarter, maybe you would have dealt with them a little bit differently at this point. But
Yeah, I think you'll probably see a little bit in this quarter that stuff like that we were really sharp on in the first 2/3 of the game.
yeah,
In that situation, I think right at the start of the last quarter, 2-2, you can either decide that, hey, look, we want to try and keep it nice, or we could just say, actually, no, that's not good enough. Potentially in hindsight, and it was the same with that tackle in the third quarter. To me, it looked like just an accidental thing, but maybe I should be saying, hey, look, that's not good enough. We need to be better. It's something that Argentina and the Australians and a few other teams do really, really well, is that little knock of the ball away. And it's something that across the board, whether it's at this level or further down, we should be a bit stricter on. So, yeah.
and how much are you thinking to yourself? Okay, we're now in a 2-2 game. Does it change your approach to management at all? Knowing that, okay, now we're in tight. If it was still, say, 2-0 to Spain, does that change your approach at all, or just your attention, perhaps?
Usually it would, but with these two teams, we're trying to be pretty onto it anyway. You can't. As I said, with Argentina, anything that goes against them, rightly or wrongly, just it causes so many issues. So, whether it was 2-2 or 2-0, it was kind of still the same in that respect. I think in any other game, if you go from 2-0 to 2-1 to 2-2, then yeah, you really do focus in and say, right, this is going to get interesting.
Yeah.
Up until this point, the game was still really, reasonably well. Not reasonably. It was really well tempered. There was no niggly stuff. There was a couple of sort of tackle, and there's a few little hitaways, and the 5 meters were starting to get a bit smaller, which we probably got sucked into letting go a bit because the two teams were still playing hockey.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting watching back, and just say, we could have nailed. Yeah, there's a point. There's one. There's one. There's one, and that's the trick. You've got to get those on the pitch.
So once we watch our final clip together, which will happen in about 2 minutes from now, I felt like after watching that clip and watching that moment of the game, that was a bit of a turning point for the temper in the game. And maybe you can tell me if you agree with that when we get there, because I agree that it seemed pretty well tempered and that sort of thing. And that moment was when things got a little bit dicier from both the teams.
Yeah, it did. Yep.
So I'm talking at about 9:15 for everybody playing at home, 9:15 on the clock here in Q4, but we are still at about 10:45. Finally, Tom was going to have some action. Martin's a real ball hog.
Quite nice. It was still at the other end about that point, but anyway.
All right, so we're about 15 seconds away from the next part. I feel like we've been building towards this moment.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the game finished at the end of the quarter, but anyway, here we go.
So you can see, you guys at home, that we've got a bit of a turnover, and it comes quickly. And Tom was calling for a taxi, and and we have a challenge, which Tom calls a free hit for the defense. So if everyone wants to give it a little pause here at 8:45 on the clock, and we're going to look at the clip. And hopefully, yeah, again, you can't see this, but I think you can imagine what just happened. Feel free to use your feed there, Tom. I'll go back through it, but
again under pressure by the Spanish players.
And that's the wrong clip. 4. Okay. Here it comes. So there was a turnover here, and I think the ball outlet quite quickly, a bit unexpectedly for you, but I can see that your anticipation maybe wasn't quite where you wanted it to be. And then as the Spanish attacker is coming into the circle, he's got only one hand on his stick. He's got his left arm there, and he's got his right arm flailing out. He doesn't have a ton of control. And then you end up calling a free hit. What did you see there? Do you remember?
Yeah. The first thing was that whole break and me trailing. You know, whether I was too high up the field, I was too slow to turn and too slow to get going. And then basically once you're at that point, you just go, right, I'm just going to tuck in behind and hope for the best, basically. What I saw was that he was carrying the ball really wide. His body was all over the show. The Argentinian came across to make a tackle, and then he kind of lost control and just went down, and then ended up rolling on the ball. And so there was, for me, a little bit of obstruction. There was certainly the fact he ended up on the ball. And I was hoping and praying and just basically pleading with him to send it upstairs and say, refer this. You know, it's I mean, yeah. Again, I think if I'd blown a penalty corner here, rightly or wrongly, I don't think anybody would have had any complaints. You know, the Argentinians could argue that it was a nice clean tackle, but I think, you know, the video kind of shows there was enough stuff there, certainly for it to be a penalty corner, if not a bit more. But if they'd gone upstairs, then it would either be a penalty corner or it would be a free hit defence, and the world would move on, because that would be the call.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
I think that what's interesting, and if
couldn't
you
basically
had the chance,
said.
Yeah, if you had the chance to look at the replay that that I left in the Dropbox folder for you there, that when you saw it from the opposite angle, so across the circle, it really actually, for me, it was a bit of a vindication for you, because it shows that the Argentinian player really doesn't use his body at all. There's a little bit of a hand contact, but nothing that really pushes the player. And the Spanish player he's got his left arm really kind of, he's trying to create that barrier. He is trying to actually shield the ball. Not very effectively, but he is really trying, and there isn't a great deal of contact initiated by the defender at all. So I think that had Kuhn taken a look at this, I think he may have upheld your decision.
I think talking to Kuhn afterwards, I think his take on it was that if I'd blown a PC, he'd be staying with the PC. If I'd blown the free hit, which I did, he'd be staying with the free hit coming out. I mean, I had a view straight through and from the back. Right. So, you know, it wasn't a bad view, but it obviously doesn't show the front on. But as I said, in terms of the game, I mean, whether the decision's right or not, I think in terms of the game, if I'd blown a penalty corner there, there'd just be no issues whatsoever. Yeah. You know, and the same with that tackle in the third quarter. You know, regardless of what we sort of think about carrying the ball and reach. If I'd flick the green card, everybody would just say, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah. And is that the difference when, I don't know if you use these terms or not, but sometimes it's about the easy decision versus the clever decision. So the one that people would expect from a not very close look at the play versus the one that if you really examine it with a microscope, you're like, oh, well, that actually is the correct decision. But it's a lot more difficult to explain or justify or that sort of thing.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I mean, there's some calls that you just have to get right, and regardless of popular opinion. But other ones like that, where there's a big contact, and unless it's a really clear, nice tackle, I think everybody would walk away going, you know what, sure, in the corner.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and you're right. And from there, and we had probably a good half-hour discussion with management after the game regarding this tackle in particular. But it was just like, look, please refer this. Please refer it. And he didn't.
Yeah, that's shocking. That's the thing that I don't understand. And, we'll talk about that in a second. Actually, we'll get the game restarted so that we can talk over the game as we're going. But I've got 8:47 on the clock here, and we'll get started in 3, 2, 1, going. And for me, there were probably 3 decisions where I thought, oh yeah, Spain's going to take this one. They're going to take this one upstairs. And they didn't. So they gave grief, but didn't ask for the tea. And then with 3:10 left in the game, we're going to see it come up. Just the most bizarre choice to make a referral. And I'm really interested. I wish we could talk to more coaches and leadership of teams to say, so what is your strategy? What are you looking for with a video referral? Like, do you know when you should ask for one and when something's close and who's got that responsibility and all that kind of stuff? It's a very interesting, it's an interesting issue. And I don't know if a lot of teams have done a lot of work on that. I understand that in the last few years when Kate Richardson-Walsh was leading GB in England, that they specifically did work with her and umpires learning about how to ask for video referrals, when to ask for them, and under what situations. But I'm not sure if that's a widespread practice, and maybe it needs to be.
Yeah, I think it does. I certainly know that the Indians in the men's side have done a fair bit of work. Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw that in this year's Pro League against Belgium. Both teams had thrown their referral away in the first quarter. And then in the second game, India needed to use their referral, and they'd been given the message from their coaching staff that unless you're 100% sure, don't go there. And they were kind of so scared they almost forgot they had it. I know the Kiwi girls with Kayla Sharlin when she was captain, she used to be brilliant at actually understanding, when can we refer, because you can refer anything, but when should we? When are the ones that we're just going to say, oh, we'll suck it up and defend this? But it is certainly something that teams need to have a strategy, because you can't just go throwing it away, but at the same time, it's there to be used. And if you don't use it, then we don't know.
All right, so I'm coming close to 6 minutes left in Q4. Stain's asking why not invite the coaches and players to join in to these kind of things. Hey, this is an open book, Stain. I'm happy to have anybody join in, so come on board.
Look, I think we're getting a bit more of that happening. I know, as I said, with the Pro League games that we had in India, we had good conversation with Shooter, with Belgium, and with the Aussie guys, with Sorello and that. That any conversation we can have that's going to move our understanding of what the players are trying to do and what coaches want, because some of this stuff we can go out and umpire, but what do coaches actually want us to do? How do they want the game played?
I'm just noticing right at this point here with 5 minutes left that you're a lot deeper. You're quite close to your end line, and you're right there. And I'm like, yep, adjustment made. Good work, sir.
Yeah.
So Simon,
well, it was. I've been caught a couple of times. Certainly, Spain were attacking a lot quicker and really just throwing balls. So, it was a pretty conscious adjustment to be made. That look, I can't afford to be doing what I was doing.
Fair enough. So Simon, what are your strategies for getting back into the game after such a big call?
Movement for me.
Okay.
Moving. Being a little bit quicker, a little bit sharper, standing a little bit taller, and making sure that whatever is happening, whether I'm blowing the whistle or not blowing it, it's a sharp decision making process.
Yeah.
But just a little bit quicker on the feet, a little bit, not sort of just cruising around the field, which I tend to do a little bit sometimes. Try to get
Yeah. One thing that I've mentioned.
I'm not the quickest guy out there, but yeah.
Yeah, in other broadcasts, one of the techniques that I try to coach the umpires that are struggling with that sort of thing is to read ahead. So they've made a tough decision. Maybe they weren't happy with it. And the best way to get out of that is to get their brain into the future, read what's going to be the next play. What are the teams going to change? What are they doing? What's my colleague doing? What's the third pass, the fourth pass, the fifth pass? And the more you can get away from the past, the better and plus it's going to give you the tools you need to actually make that accurate decision coming up. And I know Dallas didn't like that card, but it was very obvious. I think that was very good. Small question from Ernst Bart here. I know this guy. Can you explain an example of a typical situation that frustrates the umpires when a coach or player is interpreting rules differently, and how to manage this? That's a tough one. We can come back to it after the broadcast is over. Actually, that might be a more cerebral one off the moment, but.
Yeah, at international level, most things are pretty good. I think if we come down a little bit further, then the understanding of maybe it's the danger or the overheads or obstruction or any of those things that we kind of take a little bit for granted. I had a coach that actively coached pushing the ball through the players' legs and then steamrolling them and calling obstruction. And until you sit down and discuss that, and that frustration would then lead through to all the players, etc. So it's those little understandings there. The slide tackle when we sort of started making an issue out of that, which you don't really see now, but any of those things there that saying, hey, this is what we're trying to do with the game. When the coaches aren't on board with that, that's the frustrating part. We're here we're not here for ourselves, or I hope we're not. We're here for the game of hockey, and if you think we're out here just to screw you over, then that's a frustrating part.
Well said.
Was that video referral there that you're talking about?
That was the one that Romeo, when he flipped it up into the Argentinian's lower trunk area. And I mean, it was such a tough game for him. The good news is, though, is that he came up with this great stick save on the penalty corner and redeemed
Yeah,
himself. But boy, he had a rough game all the way through. And again, when you watch the players and you can sort of see over the context of the game, you can see them getting frustrated, and then they just lose their decision-making capabilities in that moment. And sometimes that comes onto us, where they're yelling at us for the decisions we made, or they ask for a rash video referral that they shouldn't have. So, and we need to have empathy for that. These are people with emotions and a lot on the line, and it's about understanding it. That's where that's coming from. Not
yeah,
because
it
they
is.
hate us, but it's because
You know,
they're
they
upset
were,
at themselves.
yeah, and they were getting the sense, or they were starting to feel like things were going against them. As I said, there was that little tackle in the third quarter that they thought should be a card. There was the penalty corner at the end that they didn't get. Um, there was just a couple of little things that wasn't going their way, and so they were holding on to a 2-2 game. I don't know what he was thinking with that referral, but that kind of all came from that aspect. It was all tied in together.
Alicia's making nice comments here. I hope everybody's having a chance. I'm trying to pop them up for you, but she might be my next victim as a guest star. You think she'd be good, eh? All right.
Perfect.
All right.
Absolutely.
Leash, you've been told. Mike D asking the yellow card. I think it was a physical breakdown. Pushing. Yes, it was hard to see on that, Mike. He was just asking what the yellow card was for really quickly. I think there was a push just before the ball arrived, but it was hard to see on the broadcast, so I didn't clip it.
Yeah, it was a pretty clear yellow, but just in the context of the game, having not had the call at the other end and then straight away, didn't quite sit nicely.
Yeah.
But it was just a clear yellow card. So.
Yeah. And here we are. We've got 4 seconds left, and Martin has luckily had the opportunity for a nice, easy foot call for a penalty corner.
It's the ones you like, isn't it?
Oh, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to argue about this one.
So we're under a bit of pressure here too, because Spain didn't have a referral, and so things like ball outside the circle. I mean, the guys at halfway were talking to me about that straight away. Things a bit close. Yeah.
So I'll ask you a question about that in a moment, but I'll just let us have a look at this goal. I mean, whatever's going to happen now. Oh, and it's a win. Well, there you go. Last second goal, big drama. It always seems so anticlimactic when the visiting team is the one that scores the last minute winner. But there you go. Let's just see. James has he's a very good typist here. I don't even know if I can read all this. Checking whether it's a try when nobody thinks it is. Only because a try can be sent up for review. Let me put this back up again. Once it's anything else can also be checked. Oh, so you're talking about the strategies that they have in Australian Rugby League for bringing about other decisions into the play. Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of room in the way that the video referral regulations are written for teams to, how do I say this properly? Well, exploit the loopholes. And because really the video umpire's responsibility is to look at the entire situation, right? They won't ignore something else that's been seen, even though a very specific question has been asked. Do I have that right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, if the whole world can see something on TV that we're choosing to ignore because it's not the question that was being asked, well, at the end of the day, we want the right decision, the fair decision. So if there's something that's happened in that particular play and we can rule on it from a video perspective, then that's what we're looking at, as well as the question.
Yeah. And I think as somebody who's, I only had one tournament where there was video review, and back in those days, it was very strict. The teams had to ask a very specific question, and if they didn't ask the right question and something else happened, it was like, nope, you don't get the decision. And I always thought that was manifestly unfair, because you don't want to penalize a team that perhaps doesn't have the ability to express themselves in the language. And it's not about tricking the system. It's about getting the right result, as you said. So I'm really glad that it's gone that way, but it'll be interesting to see if teams get smarter and smarter about that and kind of push the envelope far enough that we have to bring it back a little bit with the regs. Who knows?
Oh, looks, yeah. I mean, some of the players out there are very, very clever. There's one particular guy that plays for Great Britain that he'll be the first person to get in here and say, look, yeah, we agree that it's hit our foot, but it's also done this, and this. And 9 times out of 10, he's right. But it's a balancing act that we have to get between getting the right decision and the fair decision, and getting, we don't want to go down the track of cricket where, hey, look, we've got 2 referrals left and potentially it's an LBW decision. Let's roll the dice and see what happens. It's meant to fix the big mistakes. And we make big mistakes. They happen all the time. We're blocked out, or we just get things wrong, or whatever it is. So that's what it's there to fix. Not, hey, let's chance our arm here. But at the same time, when you miss 2 or 3 things in the circle, well, why does one team benefit where really it should quite clearly be the other way? So let's get the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, friends at home. Let's get some other questions as we've been wrapping up here. I think everybody's just been overwhelmed at the excellence and the all the emotion and drama of that game.
I was holding on for about the last 10 minutes of that game, as you could probably tell. But it was an interesting experience.
Yeah. Well, let's put up some compliments then. Yes, it's definitely a new dimension when I'm not just talking to myself in front of a computer. This has been just crazy fun for me. I'm like, wow, somebody's talking back to me for once. This is great. I do have to try to do it more often, and it's nice. I'm seeing people chiming in, other umpires. Hopefully they've seen how great this was and how well received it was, and they'll be knocking down my door to come on board. I'm looking for Saturday women's game. Maybe somebody in the path.
I think Alicia should be locked in, really.
Absolutely. Well, I'll get her for the week, because I do the Saturday ones at 8 o'clock my time, 2 p.m. GMT. So maybe more appropriate for a European or PAF umpire, and then maybe I'll get Alicia coming on in a week if she's interested. Ooh, here's a... What was the aftermatch like with Martin Madden? Asks Gareth. Didn't I say you were done, Gareth? God. You don't even have to answer that, Tomo.
It's a long flight home.
Okay, Nirmal's asking, lots of chat after the final whistle. How did you manage that in the heat of the moment? Or do you? Do you try to maybe push it off? Because you did tell me there was a bit of a discussion with particularly the Spanish management afterwards.
Yeah, there was a lot of chat after the game. I mean, the Argentinians had a bit of a go at Martin for a start. We got one Spanish guy after another, so they took turns. But everybody was was pretty good, and so it was just conversation. Yeah. Adam Webster was our TO. He was pretty good as well. He got out there pretty quick, but at the same time, he just sort of sat back and let things happen. Because at the end of the day, we're big boys. We can look after ourselves, and that conversation needs to happen. Sometimes straight after the game is not the best option.
Yep.
And we need to walk away. But then it's really important to go back to it and say, look, you guys go away and get a drink. We'll go and get changed, but then we'll come back and have that chat. Because so often we don't. We run away and hide, or they vent and then disappear. But and maybe that's okay. Maybe they can do that. But as umpires, we need to be available. Sometimes we need a bit of support around us to be able to do that. But the conversation was good. It did get a little bit repetitive. But then at the same time, we were saying to them, hey, well, look, you guys go away and talk to FIH, go away and talk to, we've turned up here to umpire this game. We're going to get the video in about a week's time. Maybe we need some more resources. I don't know. I mean, but you guys have to push that.
Yeah.
The teams have to do it. But the conversation was good, and it had to happen. And as long as the teams are respectful and the people are respectful about how they go about doing that, then I'm all for standing around and having a chat. You get to a point where the conversation stops, and we go around in circles, in which case, hey, look, sure. But your support from as I said, from Adam was superb. He got out there pretty quick just to make sure nothing was going, but then he allowed that conversation to happen. So.
Yeah, I agree. That was something that I experienced maybe for the first time really when I went over to England and I started umpiring the National League there, is that they have a very strong culture of post-game meetings between the umpires and the coaches or the captains or all the above or anybody, where you're at the post-match teas and you are expected as the umpire to make yourself available and to even initiate conversations with the teams to say, hey, did you have any questions, any thoughts? You want to just chat about the weather, whatever you want to do. And that was sort of the first time that I was exposed to that, the desirability of having that regular dialogue. And even if there was nothing to talk about, making that connection, establishing that rapport. And then when you had the trickier games where you really did have to work something out afterwards, you were more confident and you felt more comfortable. And okay, this is the conversation we're going to have. Let's get through it. And you're in a setting, you're in the pub, you're in the clubhouse, whatever it is. And it's a great setting to be able to maybe go around in those circles, but to have that really constructive dialogue, between the parties. So I see that more and more happening, at international levels as well. And it's something I think we can share in our own local hockey culture, is like, hey, let's get together after the game, not after the final whistle necessarily, but let's get after that if we have time and have that really good, thorough chat. And that's where really good learning moments happen between everybody, I think.
It is. And we have a lot of discussion about umpire-player relations and, us and them and everything else. But, I think it's up to us to sort of bridge that gap. We can go and sit in our corner of the bar and the players can sit at their table, etc. Or we can go and say, right, hey, what do you reckon? Or, the next week, when we're umpiring at home, we see the same people week in, week out. Hey, look, last week, what was your thoughts? What stood out to you? And it's tough because we're busy and we've got lives and we've got to shoot away and don't turn up till sort of, just before the start and everything else. But, if we want to be better, then we need to make that time, make that connection. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ryan's got a question here. Lower level hockey, maybe high school level, what would you advise umpires to do if the coach starts mouthing off at the umpire? Do you have any suggestions there? I mean, we've all been in this situation, so I have my techniques. What are yours?
So what was the question?
What would you do when you're in a situation where you probably don't have a tech table available to you and you've got a coach who's really going at you?
Yeah, it's a real tough environment. Uh, there's a whole lot of little things we can do, and some of them aren't very nice. We can. I'm not a big fan of dealing with captains, but sometimes at that lower level, we do just have to make the captain responsible for their coaching staff. Um, it is a case of if we can, getting the local association involved
Mm-hmm.
and getting them to deal with it from the sideline perspective. That's not always going to happen, and particularly depending on if it's a high school game, sometimes they're at satellite venue, and we're lucky in New Zealand that it's generally at a localised venue, but
I'll tell you a story, something I did in one of my high school games, because I still do umpire some high school hockey here in Calgary. And I mean, you can probably anticipate that here we have perhaps not a very well developed hockey culture, maybe not the most sophisticated hockey people around. And so I was doing a high school game, and I had a coach who was starting to verbalize a little bit too much. And I was on the other side of the pitch from the sideline, but my colleague was a little experienced and decided to step in a bit. And I stopped time and I invited the coach onto the field. And I was very careful not to raise my voice in any way, but I brought them onto the field so everybody could see that this coach and I were going to have a conversation. And then I turned side on to that person, and then I explained to them, look, and I went through the process and just said, I appreciate your frustration, but we are here to set an example for these players, and I want you to have the opportunity to set your best example for what you want your players to learn. And I will do the same thing. And the quietness and the fact that everybody was watching was just enough. And then I sent the coach back and gave everybody a thumbs up. Yeah, we're all good. And off we went to play. Not another peep from that coach. So sometimes an approach where you stop, the events, you slow things down, you bring something in quietly, but you show that you're having this conversation, can really help, rather than trying to make little comments as the game's going along, as you're running past them, like, okay, I've had enough from you, coach, and that sort of thing. So there's different approaches that you can try. I hate banning anybody for dissent myself. I always try to find different ways to deal with it, but it all depends on how much confidence you have. If you're an adult dealing with another adult, that's way easier than if you're a younger umpire as well. So I totally understand that situation. And that's when sometimes you need to get other administrators and such involved in the situation.
Yeah, it really is. It's a part of sport that is not a good part. And kids in particular, refereeing or umpiring kids is a really tough situation. But that's where we're at. That's what we exist in. And so it's up to everybody else around to get in behind and support that. But I think that really quiet calmness, and that's pretty tricky when you're a young person dealing with maybe an adult coach, taking that deep breath and trying to say, hey, look, you're not helping here. But as soon as we start firing up at them, blowing free hits the other way, or laying down the law to the captain, or anything like that, it's not going to help. But yeah, it really is up to everybody in the hockey community. And if it's happening in a game, then you need to get somebody down there to support you. And that's where our associations need to be doing a good job. Or your umpiring community.
Yeah.
Look, it is a really tough thing to have to deal with and I'm assuming as a young person, but as any person, getting abuse from the sideline is, why are we giving up our Saturday or our Wednesday night or Sunday morning to come and do this? But it's, as we know, such a cool place to be involved with it. That's why we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a few questions going through about video referrals and the conditions about when a team loses a referral, when they keep a referral, and I'm just posting this because I know that you and we could probably do a 3-hour seminar on what the specific rules about when referrals are lost and when they're gained and how that's been changing. And every few months, there's a little bit of a shift in the guidance and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think we can necessarily address that right now. But one of the things that's really helpful is I find is to actually read the FIH tournament regulations and read the video referral section. So for all of you at home, I can post a link somewhere, and maybe I'll do up a little post on FH Umpires where I talk about a few of the examples, because people have noticed that there's times where they think a specific question has been asked, and if they ask for a particular result and then they only get less than that, or what the case may be, I think what we see often now is that teams might be given a free hit outside and then they ask for an upgrade. They ask for the penalty corner for an intentional foul, and then they don't get that, and then they lose the referral, even though they keep their free hit. So it can be really confusing for fans at home, and I totally understand. I respect that. And it must be tough for you guys as you're getting ready for games and making sure that when you're in the booth that you're you're getting these technicalities right. Is there anything that you do specifically if you're the one who's going to be in the booth? Do you spend some time looking through the regs and the briefing to make sure that you're all buffed up on what's going to be coming at you?
Yeah, and we've got two sort of central documents regarding videos. We've got the regulations, and then we've got a briefing document that sort of goes alongside that. And the briefing's based around the philosophy of the video umpire. And whether you keep or lose your referral, it's not so much about the question, it is about the outcome. So we had Belgium, India the other day, with Belgium quite specifically asked for a penalty stroke.
Yep.
They were told that advantage had been played on the penalty stroke. Whatever else happened, but they were adamant that they wanted the penalty stroke. The fact that there was a penalty corner infringement later on, and we could argue about this one all day, whether in the fairness of the game a penalty corner and keep the referral is the right and the fair thing, and I don't think anybody would argue with that. The Indians wouldn't argue. Yep, sure. I mean, the guys that read the rules would sort of have a go at you afterwards, but in the spirit of the game, that's probably right. But at the same time, Belgium asked for a penalty stroke, and they didn't get a penalty stroke. If you ask for a free hit, if you get given a free hit and you ask for a penalty corner, and it comes back as a free hit, well, you don't get to keep your referral, and that's the whole. Is there a gross injustice been done? Have we completely stuffed up? We have come a long way. It used to be that an umpire misses a foot and then misses a second foot, and one team appeals and comes back, so, oh no, it hit the first foot, and then everybody loses their referral, and we still don't know what's going on. We've kind of tidied that aspect up. But it is down to the umpires sort of understanding. We're set by regulations, and we have to work with those regulations.
Yep.
And if there's a little bit of grey area, then maybe we can kind of wheel and deal. But as soon as you start doing that, then you're throwing the whole process under the bus.
Yeah.
And the process has changed. It's changed significantly in the last 10 years. They brought in the fact that you keep your referral if the ball had gone out of play, etc., or something had happened beforehand, and you keep your referral if you do this and this. But there's still the aspect that if you want a penalty stroke and it's not a penalty stroke, then you don't get to keep your referral. You're not right. Even if it's a play on, and it's a little bit unjust where it's a play on situation that then comes back as a PC, but you ask for a strike. Although most teams are smart now and they just say, hey, look, we want to refer.
Yeah.
You've missed something. You know,
it's almost
not even
it's almost like it's gotten to the point where the teams that perhaps aren't as expressive in English have a better shot now because they're not expected to be that specific. And they might just say, well, we, foul, or foot. And the conclusion, the recommendation that comes from the video umpire doesn't have to, they're not measuring it against, well, was it an intentional foot or an unintentional foot or anything like that. It's, they can be more vague and they've got a better chance of keeping the referral actually. So it's kind of like a nice little now we've finally given them a little bit of an advantage. So I like it.
It's certainly easy for us up in the box when the specific question comes and you go, right, that's what I'm looking for. But at the same, as I said, everybody's seeing the same footage, and if we come up with that answer and everybody else has seen that one, well, we're never going to win. So,
absolutely. So just for everybody playing at home, I did post a link to the top tier outdoor competitions regulations. So if people are super nerds like me, they can go look at the video referral regulations. I can't remember which appendix it is. I think it's appendix 14. Go nuts. Go have a look. Geek out. DM me with your further questions, and we can have some super geeky fun with that. I'm not normal, just so you know. There's still tons of people on the broadcast. This is crazy. If there's anybody else who's got other questions for our dear friend over there in New Zealand, please chime into the broadcast. But this has been epic. We've got like 2 hours and 15 minutes gone. Woof.
Well, it certainly beats writing an essay on human resource management education. So if anybody wants to do that for me, flick me a line because we can sort out some kind of,
Oh, this is great. So everybody's just sending their thanks. Robert, hey, it's my pleasure. I'm sure it's Tom's pleasure too. We got to drink wine together. That was fun. I've decided that for my 8 a.m. broadcasts, I'm going to drink mimosas. I think I owe it to the populace. And yes, can Mrs. Tomo come and give us some tea advice? That would be really nice. It'd be nice to do a session with a technical official and get their perspective and their input on things.
Oh, it's a different world, that one, isn't it?
Yeah. Hartmut, you're absolutely welcome. I'm glad you guys enjoyed. And all that. See you on the field. Everybody's saying the thanks. It's a good format, says Stain. Thank you so much. Hey, it was such a delight to have you. Other than the fact I've been listening to an echo of us for the last 2 hours and 20 minutes. I have such a headache. But we soldiered through, just like you do.
I haven't got any echo whatsoever. It's perfect in mine.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait to watch the broadcast back and go, yeah, that was really good. Because right now it's been hell. Yep, totally agree. Thanks, guys. Leash saying good job, team. Yep, you're going to be one of us very soon. And Joe, you're very welcome. Javier. John Selwood, you're very welcome, guys. Thank you so much. And hey, let's do this again sometime. I'm going to let some of your friends come in first, but then we'll have you back.
Oh, more than welcome.
Yep. It was a delight. Thanks so much for giving up your time. And everybody hit up Tomo on go Facebook friend him. He needs more friends. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night, morning, afternoon, all those things. Thanks a lot, Tomo. Bye.
Cheers, guys. See you later on.